Good morning and welcome to Coffee with Cable, your weekly cup of motivation. I'm your host, Troy Cable. This coffee sure tastes like paradise. The beans are grown in rich volcanic soil, embraced by the abundant mountain rain, warmed by the Pacific sun, and cooled by the gentle Hawaiian trade winds. It's Kauai Coffee at its finest. Grab your cup of paradise because it all starts right now. Ever since I was young, I can still remember my first cup of coffee. I was about 6 years old and at my grandmother's house. Needless to say, she put more creamer in the coffee than actual coffee. But boy, I sure did love it. I felt like I was on cloud nine, not just because of the sugar coursing through my veins, but it was like a rite of passage, drinking coffee with the grown-ups. I always looked forward to going over to Grandma's house, not just for the great tasting coffee, but for the time that we were able to spend together with one another over coffee. Coffee was a great way for us to reconnect, laugh, and just enjoy the day. Of course, over the years, my taste for coffee have changed, and with a lot less creamer, of course. Like for millions of other coffee lovers, it's a great conversational starter. It brings people together. It gets your creative juices flowing for whatever the day may hold. Almost any interaction we have with one another, whether it's business or personal, involves coffee or some type of beverage in some form or fashion. For instance, if you're wanting to get to know somebody, you usually would ask them out for coffee. It is very true. Everyone's taste is so particular to their own experiences. Take me, for example. My taste in coffee completely changed after I visited Kauai. Hawaii is one of my favorite traveling destinations, along with their coffee, of course. But it's not just the coffee that makes Kauai coffee great, but the experiences and the memories I was able to make in Hawaii that makes this coffee so great. Every time I take a sip, I can just imagine the waves crashing along the beach and remembering the great conversations with family and friends. That leads me to my story for today. A professor began his class with an empty mason jar. He started to fill this mason jar with golf balls. He asked his students, "Is the jar full?" The students said, "Yes, it is." So the professor took some pebbles, started filling the jar, filling all those empty spaces in between those golf balls. Get them all in those crevices. And then he asked the students, once again, "Is that jar full?" And they said, "Yes, it is." So the professor took some sand and he began to pour it into the jar, filling in all those spaces between the pebbles, between the golf balls. And then proceeded to ask once again, "Is that jar full?" And the students replied, "Yes, it has to be. There's no more room." So the professor took a cup of coffee and began to pour it into the jar, filling all the spaces in between the sand. Then the professor went on to say, "I want you to recognize that this jar represents your life. The golf balls are the important things in your life, like your family, your children, your health, and your friends. The pebbles, they're the other things in your life, like your job, your home, your car. The sand is everything else, the small stuff. If you put the sand into the jar first, there's no room for the pebbles or the golf balls. The same goes for your life. If you spend all of your time and energy in the small stuff, you'll never have room for the things that are important. Make time to play with your children. Enjoy dinner with the family and friends. Go out and throw the ball in the yard, because there always will be time to clean the house, aka the sand. Take care of the golf balls, the things that really matter in life. Set your priorities accordingly, because the rest is just sand. Then one student out of the class asked the professor, "What about the coffee?" The professor responded, "No matter how full your life gets, there's always room to have a cup of coffee with a friend." That's exactly why we are Coffee with Cable. This week, take time to prioritize your mason jar and cultivate those relationships with a great cup of coffee. Thank you for watching Coffee with Cable. If you like the show, please subscribe, and we'll see you next week.